Good morning, guys. Working on a 2008 Infiniti G35X. It's my car. Was having an issue with the starter is where this all started, and decided to pull the starter to replace it. Had some issues getting it out, so I decided I'm going to pull the CV axle on the driver's side, because that's where the starter is located. Removed all the components as far as the tire, as far as the hub bearing, which isn't here right now, but it did sit in here at one point in time. The spindle nut, brake caliper, etc. There may be an easier way to get to where we need to go, but that's how I did it. But this video is not about that. This video is about how to remove, switch this around, this guy right here, the CV axle. Now what you're going to see here is almost the end that looks like a plunger here. That's the boot, and then the other part is still in there. I left it in there so that you guys could see what I'm dealing with currently. I'm gonna try to get the best picture I can in here, but if you can see back in here, which is really hard to do, I realize, but back in here there's a hollowed out core there, and that core is held on to, I believe, the transfer case or the transmission somehow. I'm not a professional, so please don't kill me on this, but by 6 bolts that are notoriously difficult to get to, and those bolts, I have tried every combination configuration of tools I have, which I have a lot of tools. What I came to, and which is working right now, is that I took this CV axle and I grabbed it by the end and I pulled it as hard as I could, and it came right out. The boot came off, as you can see. The boot, it's just the rubber boot. Inside is the bearings and such, and whatever will be inside there. I know somebody's going to tear me apart by what I'm saying, but what I'm trying to get to is there's no other videos on this online, and I'd really like to get back and say, hey, listen, if that boot is loose, which mine was, my CV axle was loose enough, if you give it enough pull by hand, I pulled with both hands, popped right off, pop. Those bolts are now all exposed and very easy to get to with a simple extension. I have a long extension, which is very long. You'll see that goes right to my ratchet, and it goes right in, and I can remove those bolts. So if you have any questions about that, I'm not good at following the questions and comments. I'm just putting this on here to let everybody know. If you pull that CV axle by hand, if it's loose and it pops out, it's going to give you a lot better, because I've seen a couple of videos where guys have stripped those nuts, and I can only imagine stripping them. I couldn't even imagine playing around with them now. With all I have a lot of tools, a lot of different configurations of ratchet and things like that. So I wasn't even able to touch it. I had all but given up, and then I pulled it. So once again, if you pull this by hand, once it's loose, once everything is detached, spindle nuts off. There's other videos that tell you how to get all that stuff off. But once you get to that CV axle, it's going to be tough to get those bolts off. So I don't know if you can see back in there, because I got this. Yeah, there it is, that hollowed core with the grease inside of it. There's 6 bolts. I don't know if you can see the bolts. They're kind of back in there, but they're inset. They're inset and downset. So it's almost impossible to get any sort of, but a small little wrench. I could only get a little. This is the only thing I could get in there, and I couldn't even turn it. By hand, you got your hand extended fully out. So anyways, I'm not going to make this any longer than it has to be, but if you're able to pull that CV axle by hand, it's going to get you there a lot quicker. Good luck.